I woke up in a private hospital suite not knowing how I got there. My mouth was dry, my head throbbed, and the last thing I remembered was dinner, the wine, the sudden dizziness, the floor rushing toward me. I stared at the ceiling, piecing it together, when I heard voices just outside the half-open door. My husband's voice, and my best friend's. "Are you sure she took it?" A quiet laugh. "Relax. By tomorrow morning, everything will be ours." My blood ran cold. I picked up my phone and texted my attorney 3 words. "Execute the plan now." His reply came back instantly. Just 1 word. "Finally. My name is Sandra Alcott. I'm 54. Until recently, I believed I had everything. A company I'd built across 12 states. A home on the lake shore. Financial security. A husband I'd been married to for 11 years. And a best friend I'd trusted for nearly 3 decades. Her name was Vivian. We met during our sophomore year at university. She was funny, fearless, and effortlessly charming. While I spent my 20s building businesses, Vivian floated through life, moving between marketing roles, eventually consulting independently. Opposites, everyone said. Maybe that's why we stayed close. My husband, Griffin, came into my life when I was already successful and already exhausted. He made me laugh. For a while, that felt like enough. The first crack appeared about a year before that hospital night. Not because of another woman, but because of money. Griffin had never shown much interest in our finances. Then suddenly he became very curious. How was my estate structured? Who controlled voting shares of the company? Did I have a will, a trust? At first, I laughed it off. People in their 50s talk about estate planning. Normal. Then one evening at dinner he asked whether my board of directors could remove me if I became incapacitated. I put down my fork. "That's an oddly specific question." He smiled. "Just curious." Something about it stayed with me. A few weeks later, Vivian started appearing everywhere. Charity events, dinners, our lake house, the office. She and Griffin texted constantly. Whenever I mentioned it, both had explanations. Completely reasonable explanations. Too reasonable. One morning his phone buzzed on the counter. A message preview from Vivian. "Can't stop thinking about last night." Then, immediately after, the marketing proposal was brilliant. "Thanks again." Maybe there was an innocent explanation, but something had shifted. For the first time in years, I felt uncertainty creeping into everything. So I did what I'd always done when facing uncertainty. I gathered information. Facts first, emotions later. I hired a private investigator, a former federal agent named Ray Cotter. We met in a quiet coffee shop. I felt ridiculous being there, like I was betraying my own marriage. "What do you want me to find?" he asked. "I hope nothing," I said honestly. "Most people do." 3 months later, Ray walked into my office carrying a folder. I thought he was bringing me evidence of an affair. I was wrong. The photographs were painful, but not surprising. Griffin and Vivian entering a downtown hotel. Dinner dates, weekend trips, months of careful documentation. I stared at the photos without speaking. "How long?" I asked. "At least 14 months. The number hit harder than the pictures. 14 months of anniversaries, holidays, family dinners, all while they smiled at me across my own table. Then Ray slid another document forward. Bank records. Griffin's. "What am I looking at?" Ray leaned forward. "Someone preparing for a major financial event. The kind where a large amount of money changes hands." I stared at him. "What kind of event?" He hesitated. That hesitation scared me more than anything he'd shown me. "The kind he said carefully. That doesn't require a divorce. I called my attorney, Marcus Webb, that same week. 15 years together. Business law, estate planning, asset protection. I trusted him completely. You need to assume the worst, he said, once the door was closed. For 2 months, we worked quietly. No confrontations, no emotional scenes, no accusations. Just preparation, careful, methodical, invisible. Trusts restructured. Corporate ownership reorganized. Assets protected through legal entities Griffin knew nothing about. By the end, most of what he believed he would one day inherit was already beyond his reach. Legally, permanently. Then Ray found something worse. We met in a parking garage. He handed me a report. Internet searches connected to an account Griffin occasionally used. Medical searches. Chemical searches. Questions about substances difficult to detect. Questions about symptoms. Questions about timing. Do you think he's planning to hurt me? Ray chose his words carefully. I think you're dealing with someone whose intentions may be far worse than infidelity. That night I lay awake beside Griffin while he breathed peacefully next to me, staring into the darkness, trying to reconcile the man I'd married with the evidence piling up around me. 3 days before I ended up in the hospital, Ray called with a warning. They're celebrating. Celebrating what? I don't know. But people don't celebrate before an affair. He paused. They celebrate before a payoff. That Friday, Griffin suggested dinner. Just the two of us. No phones. No distractions. He drove us to one of Chicago's most exclusive restaurants. Ordered my favorite wine without asking. Looked nostalgic. Looked tender. 2 actors reading from a script neither believed. 40 minutes into the meal, the room shifted. A slight dizziness. Pressure behind my eyes. The lights too bright. The sounds too distant. My heart beat wrong. Under the table, I sent Marcus one message. Dinner. Something's wrong. 30 seconds later, everything went black. I woke up in the hospital. I heard the voices. I sent the second message. Execute the plan now. Marcus arrived just after 7 the next morning carrying coffee and controlled satisfaction. The look attorneys wear when they know they're winning. What happened? I asked. Everything. The financial protections had activated overnight. Accounts moved. Legal notices filed. Corporate controls secured. Every mechanism we'd quietly built over months had engaged perfectly. Then came the medical results. They found a toxic substance. Marcus said it evenly, but I heard the weight behind it. The doctors believed the dosage was potentially fatal. I looked toward the window. Someone had tried to kill me. Not metaphorically. Literally. Someone I had loved. Someone who slept beside me. But the final piece arrived when Ray dropped a folder on my hospital bed that afternoon. Recent messages, some sent hours before my collapse. Vivian, tomorrow changes everything. Griffin, we're almost there. Vivian, after this, nobody can stop us. Griffin, nobody. The detectives came that afternoon. I told them everything. The affair. The investigation, the financial questions, the suspicious searches, every warning sign, and the conversation I'd overheard outside my door. When the interview ended, one detective closed his notebook. Mrs. Alcott, you've been remarkably prepared. Prepared. Such an odd word. Nobody wakes up one morning and decides to build a defense against their own murder. But months earlier, I had made a choice. I could dismiss my instincts, or I could trust them. That choice had probably saved my life. The criminal case took nearly a year. Hearings, forensic analysis, financial records, electronic messages, expert testimony. Slowly, methodically, the evidence built. Neither Griffin nor Vivian could explain away the facts. The jury certainly couldn't. When the verdicts were read, the courtroom was almost completely silent. No dramatic outbursts, just the quiet that follows truth. Griffin was convicted. Vivian was convicted. Neither would be walking free anytime soon. People ask whether I felt satisfaction. The honest answer is yes, but not the way most people imagine. I didn't feel joy. What I felt was closure. There is a difference. Revenge is often portrayed as explosive and loud. Real revenge is quieter. Real revenge is living long enough to watch lies collapse under the weight of truth. 1 year later, I stood on a wooden pier overlooking the lake. Early autumn light on the water, a cool breeze, the city humming in the distance. For the first time in a very long time, I felt completely at peace. The house was sold. Every room held ghosts. I didn't want to spend the rest of my life inside a museum of betrayal. Instead, I started a foundation providing legal and financial assistance to people facing exploitation in relationships. The first woman we helped was a single mother whose husband had secretly accumulated enormous debt in her name. Then a retired teacher whose partner had stolen her retirement savings. Then more and more. Each story reminded me why surviving matters. Because surviving gives you the chance to help someone else survive too. If there's one lesson in all of this, it's simple. Never confuse kindness with weakness. Never ignore what your instincts are trying to tell you. And never underestimate the power of preparation. Because the people who spent months planning my downfall never once considered I might be planning theirs. The trap they built for me closed. Just not around the person they expected.